Welcome to Knockout City. Today I'll be taking a look at the open cross-play beta. I was playing this on my PlayStation 5, although I don't think it officially supports PlayStation 5. I think it's more of a PS4 thing, but whatever. The game runs well enough. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on everything. You're going to get to see me walk through the training. You're going to get to see me play a match. And then lastly, I'm going to cycle through some of the customization options. But before I do, all I want you to do is subscribe. I appreciate the support. So let's talk about this game. This is an interesting title. It comes from EA, and it really has a bright and colorful Plants vs. Zombies aesthetic to it. And when I remember seeing the trailer, I actually had initially thought that it was going to be some sort of Plant vs. Zombies mod, because it seems very similar. You have incredibly bright colors, cartoony kind of looking characters, and a very kind of laid-back aesthetic. There's really nothing about this game that screams competition. It's the matches, which I'll get into the match after this tutorial here, feel very sandbaggy, and I suspect it's really due to lack of how much you're actually doing in this game. It's not to say it's a bad game. I'll just say that it's a $20 game. So keep that in mind as you think about if this is the game for you. Don't expect a 100-hour, very complex, very deep, engaging multiplayer experience or a deep, competitive, engaging story. You have pretty much seen everything this game has to offer. I'm looking at my timeline now as of about 1 minute and 46 seconds. You've pretty much seen everything, just to give you an idea. But that's not to say it's not done well, and that's not to say that there isn't space in the video game world for a more smaller, intimate, indie-type experience. Some of my favorite games are indie games that run on very limited, it's a very limited thing you're doing, and this game would definitely fall into that category. But that said, it is interesting. I don't know if the world needed a competitive dodgeball type game, but the way that these guys have handled it is probably about the best you could hope for. So basically, when you start up the game, you're going to be pushed right into a multiplayer set. They're just going to throw you into a game with other players. It's 3-on-3. They give you 3 presets to select from, and as I mentioned, you'll see the whole preset at the end of some of the customizations you could expect to see. And they're going to throw you into a map where you're going to basically run around and try to eliminate the enemy by hitting them with dodgeballs. So this is where the core gameplay really is, what the core gameplay is, but I don't think it handles it particularly well, and I'd have to say I had less fun with this game than I thought I would, and that's disappointing because I really loved Plants vs. Zombies. I love that bright, happy-go-lucky aesthetic, the, kind of comical, goofy nature, like even if your team's getting pasted, you're still laughing and having fun. I don't necessarily feel that way with this game, and I think a lot of it has to do really with map design. It's a beautiful city you're running around in. You can see there's a lot of buildings and ramps, jump pads. There's a lot of walls, which will be incredibly important to block shots. There's a bottomless pit, which I think I run into. Yep, right there. So there's a little bit of pitfalls in the map as well. There's cars circling around. So there's things to see. You don't really interact with them, though. They're really just more to kind of prevent, you being out in the open in a flat field. So you do have a nice set of terrain to kind of maneuver through and that sort of thing. The problem is the actual spawn points of the dodgeballs themselves are very limited. And now that I understand the game after playing, this was my first recording, by the way. I did play a few matches afterwards, but understanding kind of where the spawn points are, and you'll see this a lot more in the second match that we play right after this one, it really benefits you to just camp and not really waste time exploring the city. Go find a place where the balls spawn and just wait. And you will be surprised at how many spawn and how quickly you can just start throwing and just being an offensive, machine. And that you see the team doing it against us here very well. They're basically guarding a spawn point, and they're just all taking turns and lining up shots. So that's the offensive element. You're going to just basically press and hold a single button. It will automatically target the nearest opponent. You can cycle with the thumbstick on who you want to target. and then you release, and that is basically the offense of this game. Now, the defensive aspect of this game, and that red square you see around my perimeter of my screen occasionally, indicates that I'm about to be targeted. And right as the ball hits you, if you hold down a different button, you will capture the ball, and then you can throw it back a little bit faster. So there is a level of, you can't just stand in front of an enemy and take turns throwing and catching the ball. Eventually it will become kind of almost too fast to catch. So they have thought through that piece, which is nice. But the problem is the offensive element of it. And this is a loading screen, by the way. I left everything in its entirety. I want you to see how long this game takes to load between matches. It's a beta, guys. I get it, but this is silly. This is silly, and I'm going to address that in a second. But back to the defensive piece for a moment. The problem is when you get into this defensive element, you're basically, you're just running around and looking for the timing on when to hold down the button to catch the ball, which is a game in of itself only because you don't really know where it's coming from, so it's kind of hard to see. In my experience, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but you're better off just breaking a line of sight. Even against some of these players who are really kind of good and you can figure out who they are on this other team, we pretty much almost always kind of hit each other. Very rarely was there a time when we had this big rapid exchange. I'd say 9 out of 10 times when I threw a dodgeball at a character, I contacted with them. And it does kind of take away from the offense-defense. Now, I don't know how a game like this with this much movement, especially since the ball has an arc, would really benefit from a non-lock-on system. Maybe there's a mode later or some more competitive gameplay that requires you to aim a little bit. I don't really know how that would work with free motion. That would be something that they would have to figure out, I guess. But basically, it's an offensive game. It's first and foremost an offensive game. And you can see me, this is what I was talking about a minute ago. I'm just standing here grabbing these balls as they spawn, lobbing them wildly at people, and I'm getting hits, constantly getting hits, and knocking people out. I think I get a double, or I don't think it's a triple. I think I got a double here. But I'm just running around. Now, when you hit somebody, this is the other part of the game that kind of is a little weird. The ball usually just stops right at their feet. However, it seemed like in most instances, I was able to actually pick up the ball before they were, which was weird, maybe because the animation of when you get hit, it throws you back so far or up so high. So offensive, again, is really the best way to play. You just stand there and just start spamming throws, and before you know it, you're going to get a good hit. So that is the gameplay part, and I think the loop of it does kind of get a little bit frustrating. I think over time, maybe people will become better at the timing of this, if this game even really gets an audience, but it's not a lot. It seems like it's very chaotic. There's really not a lot going on here, I guess is my point. So I wasn't a fan of the gameplay at all. Now, in terms of the loading and the performance, it's beautiful. I don't know, I'm assuming it's a loading problem that they're having. Maybe it's because it's cross-play at the moment, why the in-between matches took so long. But it was a very long time every time I played. I played for about an hour. Of switching between matches, just this really long buffering time. Nothing was changing. We had the same people in the game. I don't think there's a whole lot of like level reset in terms of like there was destructive environments that the game needed to reconfigure. I don't really know what was going on. I'll chalk it up to the beta. The other thing that I did like about the game was the music was catchy and fun. The announcer, who I think is trying to be this kind of cool, suave guy, talks just a little too much, I think. Maybe it was because I was still in the kind of the tutorial phase, but I felt like every other second he was being very long-winded and explaining things that I had already figured out. And I get it, they're trying to have this aesthetic of like, hey, we're cool people, we live in Knockout City, we got this cool announcer who's going to teach you how to play this cool game, but it seemed a little over the top. And you might say that's a nitpick. You might say, oh, geez, come on, Jim, like you're really tearing this game apart. I mean, you tell me. You play it and you tell me if you think the announcer talks too much, because I don't. So when you finish a match, there are quests and stuff you can do that unlock experience points that allow you to go into the store, and you get credits for doing dailies, essentially, and you can go buy things to customize your character. I'm going to cycle through those very briefly as I wrap up this video. It seems like there's a couple things to keep you interested, maybe different gloves, different shirts, hats, facial wear, that sort of thing, to really kind of customize and have your own style, I guess. I just personally, in the sea of competitive gaming, I don't know where a game like this falls in. It seems like it would be a good Game Pass game, honestly. I think that's the best way you're going to get an influx of players. I think of a game like Bleeding Edge, which I think would be somewhat of a direct competitor to this, offered on Game Pass, was unable to successfully sustain anything, and ultimately was, disbanded. I feel like a game like this just won't necessarily have a lot of players. I think people are maybe casually interested in it, like I said, because it's pretty looking and because it is something different. But I think when you get into it and you play it, I think you'll probably take a step back and say, oh, okay, like once you've done it, you've done it. So I encourage you guys, I'm going to post this video here in another hour or so once it finishes rendering. The beta goes through the weekend. Check it out, download it, try it. It's only 3 gigabytes. It's not very big of a commitment to download. Try it out for yourself. And you tell me if you think it's something that you would be willing to invest money in. I'm going to guess no. But I do appreciate the fact that there are ideas like this out there. I think it needed a little bit more competitive gameplay. I think it needed a little bit more map design, maybe more Levolution type of things, or maps that had more traps, or not puzzles, but like platforms to them. That really did change the way I played this, because after a couple rounds, I was like, oh, here's the map, here's the floating car. Like, it didn't seem like a lot was going on here. And I think that's kind of unfortunate, because I feel like it could have been something better. Don't know if it was rushed. I don't think so. Like, there's really nothing trying to beat this game out to the market. So I'm not really sure. But that's it for my review. I hope you guys found this video informative. Leave some comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.